A basic income is a form of social security in which all citizens or residents of a country regularly receive an unconditional sum of money, either from a government or some other public institution, in addition to any income received from elsewhere. An unconditional income transfer of less than the poverty line is sometimes referred to as a partial basic income. Basic income systems that are financed by the profits of publicly owned enterprises are major components in many proposed models of market socialism. Basic income schemes have also been promoted within the context of capitalist systems, where they would be financed through various forms of taxation. Similar proposals for capital grants provided at the age of majority date to Thomas Paine's Agrarian Justice of 1795. Paired with asset-based egalitarianism, the phrase social dividend was commonly used as a synonym for basic income in the English-speaking world before 1986, after which the phrase basic income gained widespread currency. Prominent advocates of the concept include Philippe van Perijs, Ailsa McKay, André Gorz, Hillel Steiner, Peter Valentine, and Guy Standing. Policy aspects. Transparency. Basic income, it is argued, is a much more transparent and simple welfare system than the one existing in the welfare states around the world today. Instead of numerous welfare programs, it would be one universal unconditional income. Administrative efficiency. The lack of means test to similar administration would allow for some saving on social welfare which could be put towards the grant. The Basic Income Earth Network describes one of the benefits of a basic income as having a low overall cost than that of the current means-tested social welfare benefits, and they have put forth proposals for implementation they claim to be financially viable. Poverty reduction. Basic income is often argued for because of its potential to reduce poverty, and even eradicate poverty. Basic income and growth. Big allows for potential economic growth. People may decide to invest in themselves to earn higher degrees and get interesting and well-paid jobs that, in turn, could trigger growth. However, there is also a discussion about whether basic income could be a part of a degrowth agenda. Freedom. Philippe van Perijs has argued that basic income at the highest possible level, which is long-time sustainable, is a necessity if the political goal is real freedom for all. That means basically that basic income is supposed to give the economic freedom to the people, which, combined with the political freedom of speech and religion, will mean real freedom to each individual. Without economic freedom, personal, political and religious freedom are worth little. People can consider themselves free only if they are not forced to spend all times thinking only about how to provide basic necessities to themselves and their families. How will people behave? There is also a belief among critics that if people have free and unconditional money, they will not work and get lazy. Less work means less tax revenue and hence less money for the state and cities to fund public projects. There are also concerns that some people will spend the basic income on alcohol and drugs. If there is a disincentive to employment because of basic income, it is however expected that the magnitude of such a disincentive would depend on how generous the basic income were to be. Some campaigners in Switzerland have suggested a level that would only just be livable, arguing that people would want to supplement it. Tim Worstall, a writer and blogger, has argued that traditional welfare schemes create a disincentive to work because such schemes typically cause people to lose benefits at around the same rate that their income rises. He has asserted that this particular disincentive incentive is not a property shared by basic income, as the rate of increase is positive at all incomes. In one study, even when the benefits are not permanent, the hours worked by the recipients of the benefit are observed to decline by 5%, a decrease of 2 hours in a typical 40-hour workweek. While experiments have been conducted in the United States and Canada, those participating knew that the benefits were not permanent and, consequently, they were not likely to change the behavior as much or in the same manner had the guide been ongoing. As a result, total hours worked fell by about 5% on average. The work reduction was largest for second earners in two-earner households and weakest for the main earner. Further, the negative work effect was higher the more generous the benefit level. However, in studies of the income experiment in rural Dauphin, Manitoba, in the 1970s, the only two groups who worked significantly less were new mothers and teenagers working to support their families. New mothers spent this time with their infant children, and working teenagers put significant additional time into the schooling. Under income, the reduction of work effort was modest, about 1% for men, 3% for wives, and 5% for unmarried women. Another study that contradicted such decline in work incentive was a pilot project implemented in 2008 and 2009 in the Namibian village of Amitara. The assessment of the project after its conclusion found that economic activity actually increased, particularly through the launch of small businesses, and reinforcement of the local market by increasing households' buying power. However, the residents of Amitara were described as suffering dehumanizing levels of poverty before the introduction of the pilot, and as such the project's relevance to potential implementations in developed economies is not known. Affordability. The affordability of a basic income proposal relies on many factors such as the costs of any public services it replaces, tax increases required, and less tangible auxiliary effects on government revenue and/or spending. A 2012 affordability study done in the Republic of Ireland by Social Justice Ireland found that basic income would be affordable with a 45% income tax rate. This would lead to an improvement in income for the majority of the population. Paul Mason stated that universal basic income would increase Social Security costs, but that it would also reduce the higher medical costs associated with diseases of poverty, by reducing stress diseases like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, etc. would become less common. Pilot programs. The Permanent Fund of Alaska is well established and is perhaps to be seen as a permanent system rather than a basic income pilot. The same could perhaps be said about Bolsa Familia also. Leaving those two big systems apart, these are some of the most well-known basic income pilots up to date. The experiments with negative income tax in United States and Canada in the 1960s and 1970s. The experiments in Namibia, the experiment in Brazil, the experiments in India, the Give Directly experiment, the study in rural North Carolina, Utrecht, Netherlands, 2015 experiment, basic income and ideology. Basic income can be considered as a human right that assure every citizen of a country have basic human needs covers, right to life, right to food, right to water, right to clothing, right to housing, right to education, right to an adequate standard of living, right to health, right to Social Security, right to legal aid, welfare rights, right to science and culture. Left-wing views. Socialist and left-wing economists and sociologists have advocated a form of basic income as a means for distributing the economic profits of publicly owned enterprises to benefit the entire population, where the basic income payment represents the return to each citizen on the capital owned by society. These systems would be directly financed out of returns on publicly owned assets and are featured as major components of many models of market socialism. Eric Olin Wright, for example, characterizes basic income as a project for reforming capitalism into a socialist system by empowering labor in relation to capital, granting labor greater bargaining power with employers in labor markets, which can gradually decommodify labor by decoupling work from income. This would allow for an expansion in scope of the social economy, by granting citizens greater means to pursue activities that do not yield strong financial returns. Other theorists leaning towards different kinds of socialism who have advocated basic income include James Mead, Bertrand Russell, Francis Fox Piven and Harry Schutt. Mead states that a return to full employment can only be achieved if, among other things, workers offer the services at a low enough price that the required wage for unskilled labor would be too low to generate a socially desirable distribution of income. He therefore concludes that a citizen's income is necessary to achieve full employment without suffering stagnant or negative growth in wages. James Mead advocated for a social dividend scheme to be funded by publicly owned productive assets. Russell argued for a basic income alongside public ownership as a means to decrease the average length of the working day and to achieve full employment. Fox Piven holds the view that an income guarantee would benefit all workers by liberating them from the anxiety that results from the tyranny of wage slavery, and provide opportunities for people to pursue different occupations and develop untapped potentials for creativity. Gause saw basic income as a necessary adaptation to the increasing automation of work, but also a way to overcome the alienation in work and life and to increase the amount of leisure time available to each individual. Harry Schutt proposed basic income along with reforms to make all or most of the enterprises collective in nature, rather than private. Together, he argued, these measures would constitute the makeup of a post-capitalist economic system. Georgist views. Geo-libertarians seek to synthesize proprietarian libertarianism and a geoist philosophy of land as unowned commons or equally owned by all people, citing the classical economic distinction between unimproved land and private property. A rental value of land is produced by the labors of the community and, as such, rightly belongs to the community at large and not solely to the landholder. A land value tax is levied as an annual fee for exclusive access to a section of earth, which is collected and redistributed to the community either through public goods, such as public security or a court system, or in the form of a basic guaranteed income called a citizen's dividend. Geo-libertarians view the LVT as a single tax to replace all other methods of taxation, which are deemed unjust violations of the non-aggression principle. Right-wing views. Support for basic income has been expressed by several people associated with right-wing political views, while adherents of such views generally favor minimization or abolition of the public provision of welfare services. Some have cited basic income as a viable strategy to reduce the amount of bureaucratic administration that is prevalent in many contemporary welfare systems. Others have contended that it could also act as a form of compensation for fiat currency inflation. Feminist views. As with other issues, feminists hold different views on the basic income, but these views can be loosely divided into opposing views. One view which supports basic income, seeing it as a way of guaranteeing a minimum financial independence for women, and recognizing women's unpaid work in the home, and another view which opposes basic income, seeing it as having the potential to discourage women from participating in the workforce, and to reinforce traditional gender roles of women belonging in the private area and men in the public area. Technological unemployment. Concerns about automation and other causes of technological unemployment have caused many in the high-tech industry to turn to basic income proposals as a necessary implication of the business models. Journalist Nathan Schneider first highlighted the turn of the tech elite to these ideas with an article in Vice magazine, which cited figures such as Mark Andreessen, Sam Altman, Peter Diamandis, and others. The White House, in a report to Congress, has put the probability at 83% that a worker making less than $20 an hour in 2010 will eventually lose the job to a machine. Even workers making as much as $40 an hour face odds of 31%. Criticism. A commission of the German parliament has discussed basic income in 2013 and concluded that it is unrealizable because it would cause a significant decrease in the motivation to work among citizens, with unforeseen consequences for the national economy. It would require a complete restructuring of the taxation, social insurance and pension systems, which will cost a significant amount of money. The current system of social help in Germany is regarded more effective because it's more personalized. The amount of help provided is not fixed and depends on the financial situation of the person. For some socially vulnerable groups, the basic income could be not sufficient. It would pose a vast increase in immigration. It would pose a rise of the shadow economy. The corresponding rise of taxes would cause more inequality. High taxes would translate themselves into higher prices of everyday products, harming the finances of poor people. No viable way to finance basic income in Germany was found. Economists have expressed concern about the basic income. Darren Asimoglu, who has expressed uncertainty about his views on basic income, has stated, "Current U.S. status quo is horrible. A more efficient and generous social safety net is needed. But UBI is expensive and not generous enough." Eric Marsken has stated that a minimum income makes sense, but not at the cost of eliminating Social Security and Medicare. The Economist notes that raising the income floor would have no impact on the wealth gap, while cash transfers would make the most difference to those on the bottom of the pile. They posit it would be instead of existing welfare benefits worldwide. Generally, the discussion on basic income developed in Europe in the 1970s and 1980s, partly inspired by the debate in United States and Canada somewhat earlier, and has since then broadened to most of the developed world, to Latin America, Middle East, and to at least some countries in Africa and Asia. The Alaska Permanent Fund is regarded as one of the best examples of an existing basic income, even though it's only a partial basic income. Other examples of existing basic income, or similar welfare programs, include the partial basic income in Macau and the basic income in Iran. Basic income pilots have been conducted in United States and Canada in the 1960s and 1970s, Namibia and in India. In Europe there are political decisions in France, Netherlands and Finland to start up some basic income pilots. Voters in Switzerland strongly defeated a referendum on the topic in 2016, with 77% voting against the proposal. In 2016, a poll showed that 58% of the European people are aware about basic income and 65% would vote in favor of the idea. Advocates. European advocates of basic income system are, for example, Philippe van Perijs, Ailsa McKay, Götz Werner, Saar Borlage, André Gors, Antonio Negri, Osmo Swanamvara, Guy Standing. Some individuals who support introduction of basic income in Germany include activist Susanne Wiest, Green politician Sabine Niels, CDU politician Dieter Althaus, businessman Götz Werner, CDU politician Theodor Flinger, leader of the left party Kartu Kipping. In 2015, the London-based RSA launched its own proposal for basic income entitled, which advocated replacing a swathe of UK means-tested benefits with a single universal payment as a response to the changing landscape of work and an ageing population. In 2016, former Greek Minister of Finance Yanis Varoufakis declared the basic income approach was absolutely essential. Other advocates include World Wide Web inventor Tim Berners-Lee, Nobel Prize economists Christopher Pissarides and Angus Deaton, Finnish billionaire Bjorn Wahlroos, Deutsche Telekom CEO Tim Hodges, DM Droghery Markt founder Götz Werner, UK Member of Parliament Jonathan Reynolds, and President of the European Economic and Social Committee George Dassis. North America. Advocates of basic income in the United States approach the issue from a wide variety of ideological and career backgrounds, and include conservative writer Charles Murray, a former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich, Marxist sociology professor Eric Olin Wright, venture capitalists Albert Vengup, Tim Draper, and Roy Bathat, Y Combinator president Sam Altman, LGBT activist Dan Savage, artificial intelligence expert Jeremy Howard, How Stuff Works founder Marshall Brain, computer science professor Moshe Vardi, Niskanen Center CEO Jerry Taylor, financial manager Bill Gross, Zipcar co-founder Robin Chase, Singularity University CEO Rob Nail, Cato Institute senior fellow Michael Tanner, entrepreneur and environmentalist Peter Barnes, and former Service Employees International Union President Andy Stern. Historical advocates in the United States include founding father Thomas Paine, civil rights leader Martin Luther King, Jr., and Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. Canadian advocates include politician Hugh Segal, Minister for Families, Children and Social Development Jean-Yves Duclos, journalist and historian Gwyndar, and Hootsuite CEO Ryan Holmes. South America. Advocates of basic income from South America include Eduardo Suplicy. Indian Member of Parliament Varun Gandhi has written in support of basic income. Africa. South African social rights activist Archbishop Desmond Tutu supports basic income. Oceania. Advocates from New Zealand include economist Gareth Morgan and Labour Party leader Andrew Little. Petitions and referendums. In 2008, an official petition for basic income was started in Germany by Susanne Wiest. The petition was accepted and Susanne Wiest was invited for a hearing at the German Parliament's Commission of Petitions. After the hearing, the petition was closed as unrealizable. In 2015, a citizens' initiative in Spain received 185,000 signatures, short of the required amount for the proposal to be discussed in Parliament. The world's first universal basic income referendum in Switzerland on the 5th of June 2016 was rejected with a 76.9% majority.